Light of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me.
Welcome to First Light, First Thought. You've noticed something's a little different today. This is the first try at this, so First Light, First Thought, First Try, and we hope it goes well. Say it with me, Psalm 118, verse 24, "This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." And remember Hebrews 3 and verse 13, "But exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin." And you notice it's not just me today. We've got with us this week Chuck Bartlett holding our gospel meeting, and we are so glad to have him, and he's doing such a fabulous job getting the Word of God out. Chuck, thanks for being with us.
It's good to be with you, John. It's always exciting to have the opportunity to share the good news with folks.
And I really get that from you. I mean, you get excited when it's time to preach, don't you?
Oh, man, I'm all pumped up. I'm ready for tonight.
Let's see, tonight's lesson we're going to be talking about, they saw the same thing. You give us a little teaser about what we're going to be listening to?
Well, we both know that people can look at the same thing and come away with two different viewpoints, right? And what we're going to be talking about from a spiritual standpoint is that obviously those with a spiritual mind are going to see things differently than those who don't. And we need to not worry about what they don't see, and we know what we do see. I'm trying to keep John in the dark a little bit so I don't give away everything tonight.
That's right. I'll be out there.
Right.
I already know this. But Chuck has done a marvelous job, and we've advertised this big and gotten a lot of visitors here, and it's been really good because it's caused them to think about things. In fact, as I was telling Chuck, we had a young lady last night, one of the young men in our congregation, been studying with her. She's been attending the gospel meeting. They went home after your sermon last night, studied some more, and at 10 o'clock we were back up here because she wanted to be baptized for the remission of sins.
That was the greatest news I got this morning. I mean, I woke up at 4, and I grabbed my phone, and there was the news, and Connor mentioned that. What was interesting is Connor texted me when they just got home, before they started their conversation.
Wow.
And said that, well, actually, she said there was something about the program, and then they were studying after that. But no.
Isn't that great?
Life doesn't get any better.
Wonderful. Well, Chuck, talk about the church and your work with the church in Kirkwood.
Well, folks, up there in Kirkwood, I've been there for about 4 years. And the goal that the elders wanted, well, it's kind of like the theme of this meeting. They wanted me to come in and do what we could to spread the good news in the Kirkwood area, in the St. Louis area. Stouffer had been preaching there for 40 years, and he had a preacher training program where he'd bring a young man in for 2 years, and they did that for many years. And it was great. It was wonderful. He did a great work there. But they just wanted to focus more now on evangelism. And, of course, you can't have evangelism without edification. We both know that. So we're trying to reach the lost, and when people obey, it's just as important to ground them.
Yes.
And so we've been doing a lot of different things, and we have a young man that just moved in last Friday. He's going to help out with the work, and we've got a lot of things. I know it's one of your questions, stealing your thunder here. But having somebody else to come in and help out with the work is going to provide some other opportunities. Now, we're really busy with the weekly TV program, which is producing a lot of contacts every week, and it's hard to follow up on them. You know, we have members that are jumping in and helping, but you know, we're mailing out the correspondence courses to folks. We're having home studies. I mentioned about, I will steal some of your thunder here, John, because you're talking about the Kirkwood Church, right?
Right.
Well, I have these quiz boards, and we want to get into some malls. And see, it's non-threatening when people can come over and just test their knowledge of the Scriptures.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with that idea. It's multiple choice. You push the right button, the light comes on. But it's kind of cool when you have a question on there that says, baptism is for ... well, or baptism is an outward sign of an inward grace, or, you know, not necessary for salvation or for the remission of sins. And people will push a button and they'll go, hey, there's something wrong with this. The light's not coming on. We say, you might try another answer. And they'll go, I didn't know that was in the Bible. We have a Bible handy. They read it, and they realize, you know, maybe there's some other things they don't know. And would you like to have a face-to-face Bible study? Or enroll in a free home Bible course where you can work it at home, you know, at your own time, at your own speed. So, again, the goal is, just like what you're doing here in not Kirkwood, you're in...
Jonesboro.
You're in Arkansas. I never know where I am. But it's exciting to see the things, even what you're doing here. This is so wonderful, folks. I hope that you're telling your friends and your neighbors about this.
That's what we need, yes.
Got to get the word out.
Yes,
get the word
absolutely. Tell us about your religious understanding from childhood up. What was that like for you?
Well, I didn't have much. It wasn't until I got into my early teen years that, see, because none of my family really couldn't care less about God or religious matters. And so in my teen years, I became friends with some folks who went to a denomination. It was called the Brethren Church up in Canada. I'm a Toronto boy by birth, and then we moved up north. We called it cottage country when I was 7. And small town, 2,300. But there was this really big Brethren Church there in town, and I became involved in that. I was a counselor in their camps and things like that. And so I had conviction about, you know, God and His Word, and obviously wanting to go to heaven. It's funny, John. I mean, I don't know if your listeners want to hear this, but it's interesting that I always had a conscience. Even when I was younger, you know, I was going to go to a friend's house, and don't know if it's not good, but we were going to go there and smoke.
Uh-huh.
And on my way there, on the ground, I found a pack full.
Whoa.
You know what I did? I tore it up. And then I went to my friend. Like, I knew it was wrong. But to shorten the story here, my friends, we got very much involved in that denomination. And then I met somebody who was a member of the church, and they asked me if I wanted to study. And I thought, well, I'm a Christian. I'll study. No problem. You would think all religious people would want to study, wouldn't you?
Sure.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, you have viewers out there. Well, I'm not a member of the Stone Ridge Church of Christ, but, well, it doesn't matter. You want to have Bible study?
Yeah.
It shouldn't hurt. That's what you're doing here, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And so I studied with them, and it didn't take me very long to realize that what I thought I wasn't, and became a child of God. And,
awesome.
And so that's the way that worked.
That is great.
It's a short story.
And so you pretty much covered when and how you learned the truth. Here's a question I was dying to ask you, because I've really enjoyed the lessons this week. But if you only had the opportunity to speak to someone about the gospel just one time, you had one opportunity, what would you say?
Yeah.
No pressure at all here.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because you heard me preach last night by saying, you know, if I had a chance to get on primetime TV, you know, what sermon would I use, right?
Right.
Well, that's kind of along the same lines of what you're talking about. But as far as if I had a one-time chance, we both know that as much as I would want to preach the Bible to them, because there's so many valuable truths in there, I'm not helping them at all if they don't first believe in God. So I would probably spend, if I got that one time with them, is to talk about, the existence of God, the evidences that are out there. Because in truth, John, we all walk by faith, whether we're a Christian or not. Not biblical. They might not be walking by faith biblically, but people need to understand to say that, well, I'm not a believer. Well, have you ever been in an elevator? I'll ask them. They go, well, yeah. I said, well, how does it go up and down? They go, well, there's a motor. Did you see it? Well, no. Well, how do you know it was there? And I tell them, well, in truth, just because you didn't see it, you were basing that upon evidence, the way it worked, and you could hear the motor and things. You were using logic.
Yeah.
I often use, like you probably used, the old watch, right?
Right.
Person finds a watch. Would you think there was an explosion and it just all the pieces fell to the ground and it formed a watch? They go, that's silly.
Yeah.
I used that when I was in China because a lot of these people don't believe in God. So I would talk about that. Well, what would you think? And they said, well, I would think somebody made this watch. Well, why? Well, because it has design, it has order. And I go, okay, that's true. I says, now DNA, what's more complicated, this watch or DNA? And they go, well, DNA is more complicated. I tell them, it would be easier for you to believe that a building blew up and the pieces fell to the ground and formed this watch. That would be easier than to believe that life just happened spontaneously.
Right.
With DNA, as complicated as it is. And we've got a lot of people that go from that stage to the next. So your question is, it's going to be tough, a one-time only, if they don't believe in God. Now, if you ask that question a different way, you'd say, well, Chuck, what if you ran into somebody who does believe in God?
That's right, because we got to meet them where they are, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
You got to find that out. See, when we have a first Bible study, this is kind of a cool thing. And I was telling Andrew this. He just moved up. We want to get Bible studies and stuff. And I says, remember, when somebody invites you and you have an opportunity to have a study with somebody, what's your number one goal in your class? To make sure there's class number 2.
That's good. I like that.
Right?
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions if someone asks you for a Bible study, you know absolutely nothing about them, but you're going to get an opportunity to study?
I've got that coming up this weekend.
Okay.
And it happened, and I had one last weekend. Okay, so a guy from Kansas City, will you go and meet my sister-in-law? So Debbie, my wife, and I, so we go, and here's what we did. Chuck, you didn't say anything. We listened. So, how are you? So, what's your background? You born in this area? Have you gone to church anywhere? What's your background? What's your interest? So we want to know them, right?
Right.
I know we get excited. We want to preach the gospel to them, but I tell you, John, sometimes it can be too much too quick.
Oh, yeah. And like you said, we have got to go through, we've got to find out, do you believe in God? And if you do believe in God, do you believe the Bible's his inspired word? Because if we don't have those two things, what do we have?
And that sets the tone for a question you already asked. Because, and another one, I read them all last night, your questions, or it was this morning. But one of the biggest problems or misunderstandings we have today, and you know this, I'm preaching to the choir here, folks. You know this, that getting into a Bible study, religious people, and I include myself in this because of what I came out of. Most religious people really do not know the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Bottom line, you get through that obstacle, man, you're halfway home. Because people want to mix it all together. They say, a person who doesn't know the scriptures, because we tell them knowledge gives you power. I says, you know what, if you don't know anything about cars and you go in to buy a car, that salesman will eat you alive.
Oh, yeah. Right. Absolutely.
So we give them the knowledge, but see, those who don't know anything, they'll have a religious leader open up the Old Testament, and the religious leader will say to the person, like to you, I say, is this God's word, John? If I point to the Old Testament here, is this God's word?
Yes, sir.
Did God want his people to obey it?
Yes.
Well, then you need to obey it.
Aha.
Right?
Right.
And they're sitting there going, well, I guess I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of can, you know.
I agree. I have found that same thing. Even with my my daughter-in-law, when she and my son were dating, that was one of the things she wanted to know about. Now, at the time, I don't know if you had this in your area, but at the time there was this big movement. People were putting the 10 Commandments, and it was like the size of a "My house is for sale" sign.
Right, yeah.
Putting those in their yard, and they were everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, "Now you don't believe in the 10 Commandments, right?" I said, "Well, hang on a minute."
Yeah, right.
But there's a difference in those and the New Testament. And I have found, like you say, I've found that with a lot of folks. And so that's obviously someplace where we need to put some emphasis.
We really do. And once you do that, because, people, even when you answer that, I mean, I had a question asked me one time. They said, well, Chuck, okay, there's an Old Testament, there's a New Testament. Is there going to be another Testament?
And that's a good question.
It really is a great question. And there's no such thing as a foolish question when you really want to know the answer.
And those nice young men in the white shirts and the black pants that are walking or on bikes, when they come around and they say we're a part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we are going to give you some latter-day revelation. They're saying there is going to be another testament.
That and what we talked about last night, where somebody will get up in the pulpit and say, the Lord spoke to me last night. Oh, so this isn't sufficient. We need something else. So God needed to tell you something that's not in here. And I always find it interesting when they say, oh, no, it's actually in here. And I go, well, then I don't need to hear that. Just show me where it's here.
That's right. Very
Okay.
good. And that leads to another thing that I want to hear your thoughts on. Seems to be a lot of problems because we've got, when I was growing up, the popular thing was there's 300 denominations. I don't know. I think there's way over 1,000 now.
Yeah, I think so.
And so to talk a little bit about the New Testament church.
My favorite topic. My favorite topic. Because when you talk about the church, you're talking about God's children, the family of God. We had never met, right? We had never met until this week.
That's right.
And it's like going to a reunion. You see relatives maybe you haven't seen or you've never met before. And it's like this young girl, like we joked last night, she became a Christian, but she didn't get to choose her relatives.
That's right.
We're her new brothers.
Yeah, sorry.
That's the way it is, But when I think about the church, God's special people, that was, when Jesus comes on the scene and John the Baptist and Jesus and his apostles, they're all preaching about the kingdom that was to come. Well, that's pretty exciting stuff. But when people don't know that the kingdom and the church are one and the same, they miss it. Because all that hype, that pointing to the kingdom, and then Mark 9:1, some of you standing here will not taste death till you see the kingdom come with power. Whoa, that's pretty exciting. And to learn that when Jesus died, his church was established, because the word church means the called out, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've been called out of darkness, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 and 10. And the Lord added the faithful, or the saved, to the church. See, I'm not baptized into the church, I'm baptized into Christ, and he adds me to his body.
That's a
Have
great
you ever
point.
put anybody in the church?
Not a one.
You don't have that power. No. We can assist people in obeying the gospel, right? But when we talk about the church, we're talking about Christ's church. The Bible says there's but one. It's funny. Has anybody ever asked you what church you belong to?
Oh, yeah.
There's something kind of strange about that. I know what they mean, right? We know what they want to know, but we say, well, right. From a biblical standpoint, there is but one.
That's right.
And so that will open up a door of discussion. I love questions like that, right?
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
So.
I was just thinking, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about this passage, the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There's one body, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we just go back to Ephesians chapter 1, we find out the body is the church.
Right.
So we found out there's one. So like you say, they usually ask me, so what church do you pastor?
Right.
And so then that leads to a whole nother discussion about what's a pastor.
Exactly.
But I'm glad you brought that up because, and one of the things you talked about right away was the kingdom and the church, that language. And a big segment of the religious community that I've talked to, doesn't matter which denomination they're a part of, they seem to all have in common this doctrine of premillennialism. And the big difference there is that they're saying the kingdom is still to come.
Correct.
And they're saying that it was Jesus' original plan to begin the kingdom at his first advent, and he failed in that. Right. And right away I say, so your Savior failed? Right. And who's to say he's going to get it done the next time?
Well, see, the religious group I came out of, they say God had a plan B, right? Plan A failed.
Oh.
It's pretty sad, but of course we're sitting there eating it up.
Yeah.
So, well, no, God didn't plan, because what's interesting is you go all the way back and say, well, when did the plan fail? You say, well, the plan failed when Jesus died. But wait a second. I can go all the way back to Genesis chapter 12, and it talks about these three promises to Abraham. And that's one of the things we do with the overview of the Bible, and those three lessons. We want people to understand, what are those three promises to Abraham? Somebody says, I'm a child of God. And I say, that's great. Do you know the three promises to Abraham? What are you talking about? Whoa, man, you need to, because, here it is, and I'll go back to Genesis chapter 12, and then I'll say, now hold your thumb there, and let's go all the way over to Galatians chapter 3, and there it is, and then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. What?
This is all
part
new.
Yeah, it's all connected, right?
Yeah.
That's the big scheme of redemption that we have there. There was no plan B. God had a plan in mind before the foundation of the world, right?
Right. Yeah. And if my God had a plan before the foundation of the world and he couldn't get it done, that's not my God. That's
right.
not the God I read about in the Bible.
That's exactly right.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. The New Testament church, I don't know how there's anything greater we could talk about. I have a book over there, a study book somewhere that's one that Farrell Jenkins put together on the one true church. Mm-hmm. And just as you said, it goes from Genesis to Revelation. It's there everywhere.
And you know what? I'll tell you, John, with our TV viewers and the people that we've talked with, when we tell them that we have a study of how you can find the church you read about in the Bible. Now, we don't say, well, you just look for a group that loves the Lord, they sing, they care for each other. Well, they all do that. That's why you don't, when you have a child missing, you don't tell them, go look for my child with 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a nose. Well, all children have that. What are the unique identifying marks of Christ Church? And we always talk about, the more information you give, it narrows it down. It's like if your child is missing, you say, well, it's a boy. Well, that cuts half the population. And you say, well, what's the age? Well, that narrows it down a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then, especially if you say, well, my child has a little scar and a little mole. Well, the more information you give, it can only be that child. And so the more information we find about the church, the unique identifying marks, you can find the church you read about in the Bible.
That is a great illustration. And it also shows the need to read and to know. I mean, you would know every single thing about your child, right?
Right.
So, and don't you want to know every single thing about the church? Absolutely.
You got it.
Hey, I want to get your thoughts on the work of a preacher as you understand it from the Bible, not what the world says, but you've spent a lot of years in the Bible.
Right.
What does it say about your job as a preacher?
Well, do we have time to read 1 and 2 Timothy?
We do. I don't know if they have time to wait and listen.
Here's Paul telling Timothy, do the work of an evangelist. Tells him to preach the word. But let's face it, you can't preach what you do not know.
Okay.
So you got to study. That's the key. But it doesn't say stay in your study. You got to get out. You got to be with people. You got to have. To me, why would you want to be a preacher if you don't have a love for the lost?
Yeah.
Right. It starts with a love for the Lord. You know, you want to do His will. You want to use your talent. Not everybody is a preacher. I understand that. But that doesn't mean that a lot of the brethren don't do what we do as preachers.
That's right.
Because I love Acts chapter 8 and verse 4. We're not the only ones that are going about preaching and teaching. What did Connor do last night?
Oh,
right?
isn't that awesome?
I mean, he's been teaching, and,
Yeah.
and a lot of our brethren, all of them, right? They're letting their light shine, and they might not have the abilities that they wish they'd have, but they can invite them, or they might say, John, I've got a friend. Can you come over and study with us? Yeah. That's what's exciting. So we make ourselves available to help build up the brethren. Now, person says, well, Chuck, I guess you have to do weddings and funerals and go to the hospital. Well, a bunch of those things I just do because I'm a child of God.
Yeah.
Because we love one another.
Absolutely.
And so
You don't go to the hospital because you're a preacher.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the parking spot helps. No.
Yeah, that's right. That reminds me of a mutual friend of ours when he was preaching out in Utah. The first time he went to the hospital there was a place that said clergy parking. Right. So he pulled in there, and he got out, and I guess he didn't look like a clergy. Right. He looked like me and you.
Right.
And there was a security guard there, and he says, hey, buddy, that's clergy parking. He says, I'm a preacher. He said, you're a preacher? He said, yeah, ask me a Bible question. The guy said, go ahead.
Right. Well, that's it. When we immigrated from Canada to the United States, I remember one of the officers there. How would I know you're a preacher? The same kind of concept, because they got their concept of what it should be. And that's a great question of what a preacher should do. But to me, self-discipline is so important.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we don't want to take advantage of brethren. We need to be a worker for the Lord. And when I would visit with brethren that want me to come and work with them, I say, guys, you don't have to worry about me. I'm hardest on myself. Because the Lord, we got to be accountable to the Lord for what we're doing.
That's right.
We're being supported to preach the gospel.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because when I first started preaching, it was the first time that I didn't have a man telling me, this is what I expect you to do each day, and I'll be checking on you to make sure this gets. All of a sudden, I have to tell myself most of that, and that's a huge change. And as you said, some guys maybe we don't do a good job of that. But
right.
Here's something you touched on, and I really appreciate, and I'd like if you have anything else to say about it. What would you say is the overarching theme of the Bible, where you could just go nearly anywhere and you could pick up, it's just threaded all through?
Right. Do you remember Sunday when I said to you, wouldn't you have loved to have heard that sermon?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Here's Jesus saying, I'm going to teach you everything in the scriptures that pertain to me.
Yeah.
Man, I want to hear that sermon.
Absolutely.
But obviously, Jesus is the theme. People don't, I don't know if a lot of religious people even understand that. Let's talk about the cross, right? You see 3 crosses on the interstate and stuff like that. But I'm talking about the most important time in history, because, what is it? Hebrews chapter, Hebrews 9:15. And how that the blood of Christ flowed both ways.
Yes, that's a good point.
So obviously the crucifixion is the key to it all, and the prophecies way back in Genesis, right? I mean, that's the theme throughout the scriptures, and the victory all the way through Revelation. Jesus is the victor.
Yeah, isn't that great? And I absolutely agree with you. I mean, from the time of Genesis 3, when the curse is uttered, and there's going to be someone greater than the devil, and then he just gets bigger and bigger, and John the Baptist says he's going to keep getting bigger, and I'm going to get smaller, and I agree with you. That is a wonderful overarching theme of the Bible, and if you don't know that, then get with us, and we want to talk to you more about this Jesus that's woven all through the Bible.
The victory. I love that word, victory. I mean, see, that's what Revelation is all about, giving us hope. You're going to suffer a lot. You know, people think how bad things are now. I don't know if I'd like to be living during the Roman Empire as a Christian and the things that they had to go through. But yet they were preaching victory to them. And we can have that hope. It breaks my heart. I know we're going to get off topic here, but it breaks my heart when people are so down that they feel the only way out is to take their life. Failing to see that they have value.
Yes.
And God loves them so much. Yeah. And we love everybody. And the Lord can fill that void is the key.
That's a wonderful message. And if there's anybody that's listening that has had those thoughts, please leave a comment or email us, because we want to show you from the Bible that that's true. Not that that's just our thoughts, but God tells us specifically, I love you this much, and you are this valuable. And, I never understood that till this last year. I had an episode with depression. I've never had that before.
Right.
And fortunately, we in the congregation here, we have both medical doctors, and we have a lady that taught a couple decades at Arkansas State University psychology. Wow. So they both got me in the right direction. But I did not understand until then, Chuck, how your mind can take over and you can be irrational. And, all of a sudden, I know that my body's a temple and that I can't harm the temple. And yet I was having thoughts that I should.
Right.
And I did not understand that. And I'm sort of thankful that I went through it and came out, because now I get it. And if there's anyone that feels like that, please get with us. And we want to help you with the Bible and with any other avenue of help that we can.
Yeah, because we don't want to leave the impression that when you become a Christian, John, you're a Christian going through that.
Yeah.
That you're not going to have challenges. But becoming a Christian, folks, helps us to deal with those challenges. And so you reached out.
Yes.
That's the goal. We're just saying the Lord has provided a way. Bear one another's burdens. I love what Galatians 6:2.
Yeah.
We are a family, and we genuinely care. And there's a lot of people out there that don't have that family connection. That's one of the side benefits, right, of becoming a Christian and being in a part of a Christian family. It's just not name only. We genuinely look out for one another. And John, is this Autumn, is she going to slip through the cracks? There's no way.
Not if we can help it.
Exactly right.
That's right. I appreciate that so much. And this family, it's everywhere. You came here, we never met before, but we're brothers.
Right.
And we believe the same thing. It was so funny. Connor said that Autumn, one of the comments she made was, the things that Chuck's been talking about this week, it's the same things that me and you have been studying about. Connor said, that's because we use the same book.
Yeah, that was a great line. I'm taking that back to Kirkwood with me. I really can't wait to talk to the brethren about that. And I've shared the news. Everybody knows. Oh, yeah. I mean, I was texting a billion people saying, Chuck, why would you tell people other than right here in Jonesboro about what happened last night with Autumn? Are you kidding me? It was a time to rejoice. You heard me say this from the pulpit this week. There's one less person in darkness and a little more light in this world.
Praise the Lord.
It's great.
It's
awesome.
Wonderful. Now, you've talked some about, one of the things I like to talk to guys about is, as you think about this overall message of the Bible, there's some major milestones. You mentioned something that people need to put in that sequence, and that is the promises made to Abraham. Are there some other things as you go through the Bible that you feel like is a major milestone?
Yeah, I really do, and I think you've heard me tell this to the audience this week too, that it's like this couple that moved to St. Louis from California. They even texted me this week because they had gone away, and they just said, "We're back in town. We'll see you Sunday." she said, when I met them, she was really interested in this. I was kneeling back by the pew, and I said, listen. She says, I have so many questions. I go, look, at 3 lessons. I'll teach you the whole Bible. And you'll have a better understanding than people have gone to church their whole life. And she goes, really? I go, yeah, you got to get the big picture. And the big picture includes those 3 promises to Abraham. Now, here's what's really strange. It opens their eyes. I go, our first class is this. I'll grab the book of Genesis. I'll go, this is our first class. They'll go, okay. Now, our second class goes all the way through Malachi. And I go, what? And our third class is this. And they go, what? Well, I'm going to hit the highlights, right? We're not going to get bogged down. But they're going to learn about the United Kingdom, the divided kingdom. People say, what, Chuck, what is that? I'm so confused. Well, you're going to learn where the word Israel came from.
Yeah.
Right? That's really important. And they're going to see the fulfillment of those first 2 promises to Abraham. And then, of course, when you get to part 3, which you really get excited about, because when you explain the whole New Testament, you're talking about Jesus coming. Who's Jesus? His pre-existence, which removes a lot of false teaching out there, right?
Right.
So Jesus comes, and why did he come? See? Why did he come? What was he going to do when he came? Okay. And where did he go? And why is he coming back? So all those things, after those 3 lessons, they're like, wow, what next? And I go, well, we're going to learn about who's man. Then we're going to talk about who's Jesus. And then we're going to read about how does a person become a child of God.
Yeah.
But we've already covered some of that. We have a newer Christian at home, and she's our age, and she's like, I love repetition. And that's what a lot of that is when you go through those.
Yes.
People, just for it to sink in. But like your question is, John, is that we really want to give people, I tell them, I just want to give you knowledge. You and I just give them knowledge. What you do with that's up to you. When you went to university, the professor didn't say, I'm going to get you a job. Now, I'll give you the information. You can do with it with what you want.
Right.
So we're not there to pressure anybody. Say, look, if you want to stop, just tell me. I'm not here to force anything on you. But I want to give you the knowledge because, as Jesus says, truth sets you free from believing false doctrine. Yeah. I don't want to be deceived.
That's right. That is awesome. And then the Bible is not this disjointed book that the preacher says, okay, turn to Genesis. Okay, turn to Ephesians. All right, let's go back to Malachi. Let's look at Revelation. And you're like, I don't get it. How am I supposed to put all this together? And once they see the overall picture, I remember that's in this section. This is what's going on there. And then it makes a lot more sense.
How many times have I told people, and I did it even here, that I'll talk to people and I'll say, if you have a puzzle under your table and you take one of the pieces out and you ask a guy, what's that a picture of? You go, I don't know, do you have the box cover? You show the box cover and they'll go, well, that fits right there. Yeah. Oh. See, if you go your whole life to church services without the overview, people have been throwing you the 5,000 piece puzzle. They're throwing pieces at you all the time, and you're just confused.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell you what, you've inspired me. There's a new year coming up here, if the Lord wills, and that'd be a good time to start on the overall theme of the Bible. I think that'd be a great way to spend our time. Mm-hmm. Who are some of your favorite Bible characters?
We talked about one this week. You got to love Paul. Got to love Paul. Now, I'm doing a sermon. I've been working on it in the hotel room. I wrote down all the times Peter was rebuked, but the positive outcomes because of that. And so the sermon is like, can you handle a rebuke like this? Can you handle a rebuke like this? Sometimes we say, well, I can handle rebukes. I can handle it. Yeah, but what about this? What about and what those rebukes did for Peter, it caused him to mature. Yeah. Right? I mean, he became an elder. And you have to have a good reputation from within and without to meet those qualifications. Yeah. And look where he had been. But see, he rose above that. And I like, as much as I like Paul, I really like Peter. say like the Lord. We're trying to be like Jesus.
Right, right.
Now, if you want to go back to the Old Testament, there's a lot of characters there that we can identify with and appreciate. But again, Peter is one of those guys that I see hope.
Yeah.
It
I
can
feel
grow.
the same way. I love Paul, but I never feel like Paul. I feel like Peter.
Yeah.
Because I dip down, I sink in the water, and I need the Lord to pull me back out again. And I also love, as your sermon is going to show, what Peter did with his failures. He turned them around. Yeah. You know, really, Peter betrayed. We always talk about who betrayed Jesus. Who's the first person that comes to our mind? Well, Judas betrayed Jesus. Peter betrayed Jesus, but the difference was what he did afterwards.
You know, I just got to share this because to me, it's going to be preaching on it. To me, when Peter denied the Lord 3 times and he saw the Lord and he wept, I'm thinking there's a number of reasons why he wept, but one of the reasons, he's got to go back and teach the people that he denied the Lord to. How hard would that be?
Ooh.
I want to tell you, wait a minute, the one that you were just cursing about and denying, you're trying to convert me to him?
Well, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, right.
How does that work?
Right. You might want to quit, throw in the towel, right?
Yes.
Well, I've gone too far. See, you want people to know that no matter what they've done, the Lord forgives and you can move forward.
Yes, yes. Right? That is the message. In fact, before we even started your sermon, I think it was Monday night, we got here early, and there was a young lady that was here. She just recently obeyed the gospel. She's been a Christian maybe a month. And I could tell she was looking down. I said, "What is the matter?" She said, "Well, I'm still committing sin." I said, "Well, I am too." I said, "I don't like it." But I said, "Here's the greatest thing." And I did what you told me to do last night. I'd already done that, so I was glad I could check that off. But okay. I turned my Bible around, and I said, "Read this." This is 1 John chapter 1 and verse 8. And I said, "Read this." She started looking. I said, "Read it out loud." So she read it out loud. And I said, "Did you notice the word all was in there twice?" This is funny because you talked about the same things.
I did.
We're using the same book. But she said, if he's willing to forgive me of all unrighteousness and to cleanse me from all my iniquity, yes, yes. I said, "And how often do you think he'll do that?" "I don't know." I said, "He'll do it every time that you sincerely ask him to." And she was just floored. And you know what she decided to do? Kathy, Dick's wife, she went back here and got her a poster board. And she's going to make a big poster. Another passage we looked at was 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 13, that he's going to give you a way out. She's going to make a big poster of those verses and write them out in fancy letters and color it and all that to put up in her house so she'll never forget.
Awesome.
I thought that was so cool.
That is so cool. You know, you're telling that story. I was in a meeting one time and I told the elders, I said, "Don't freak out, but I'm going to teach false doctrine in the first 5 minutes. Because I want people to know how easy it is to be deceived.
Yeah.
To believe a lie." So I got up there and I said, "Man, isn't it wonderful being a Christian? Man, do you remember when we came up out of the waters of baptism? That's the cleanest we've ever been and the cleanest we'll ever be." And I went on and talked a little bit more. And I said, "Folks, did you know I just taught you false doctrine?" And I said, to think that when you come up out of the waters of baptism, that's the cleanest you will ever be, that's not true. And you just talked about it. Because our God is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins. I don't have to go get baptized again. See, that took care of all my past sins. But the blood of Christ continues to help me as I turn to God and I truly repent. And he knows if I'm trying. Yes. John says, if we say we have no sin, we're a liar. So we're all faced with that, and we all give in to temptation. But I'll never become sinless, but I think the reason why we grow, well, I don't think it, I know it, is so we sin less.
Yes. We're not sinless, but we sin less. That is a great line right there. And this was sort of something that you talked about earlier. This young lady kind of went through this depressive state because she thought when she became a Christian, everything was better. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But one of the guys in there, he thought that his past criminal history would be erased because he went down to the river and was baptized.
Right.
Well, it was with the Lord,
Right.
but the government saw it another way.
Right, exactly.
So there's still things that you will have to go through, but now you have the Lord on your side.
Exactly. That's the key.
Tell us some of your fondest memories of conversions where you've been honored to have any part in it.
Oh, man. Which one? I mean, there's so many touching scenes. If I go back more recently, we're studying with a lady who'd been in Buddhism. Her dad was a Presbyterian preacher, very liberal, she would say, and in his thinking. But she'd been in all these different religious groups, and she was just looking for the truth. And I kind of get a lump in my throat just thinking about it. But Debbie and I, we were in one of the offices there at the church building, and she started crying, and she just said, can I get baptized right now? I mean, it puts a lump in your throat.
Wow.
There was this family up in Toronto, and we were they lived on the 22nd floor, and we had a class, and so I was going back, and I went up there, and they all had their coats on. It was wintertime. What's up? I get baptized right now. And now this is just a funny story, and it's just coincidence. It's just coincidence. But I told them, I'm going to go down and bring the car around. This would happen. I turned on the car, and the radio was on, and a line came out. I don't know if you've ever heard the song, but the guy says, and I love the preacher from the Church of Christ.
Whoa!
it was just like, I just had to do a double take on it as soon as I turned the car on.
Yeah. Well, you'll never forget that.
No, obviously I hadn't, because that was many, many years ago.
Right.
But I think as a dad, I had 3 kids, and the youngest was the only one she liked to go camping, and I'd always take her for a couple of days before school would start.
I'm going to pull this over because
Okay.
I don't want to miss this.
So we're up in northern Ontario. We're just and I'm fishing, and she's paddling this little canoe, and I'm paddling, and she starts asking me some questions. You know, at first I'm thinking, you've heard me preach on this, right? So she asked me some questions, and I'm just fishing away, and she says, Dad, I want to get baptized. And so here I am, reeling my fishing rod in as fast as I could, you know. And then we go to shore, and because that particular place was a drop-off, so we had to go find a lake. There's a lot of them around.
Yeah.
And baptized her, and of course,
Oh,
then we had to
man.
call home. And I said, let's you call Mom. You know, back in the days, we didn't have cell phone.
Yeah.
You know? And so we went to a payphone and had her call her mom. But
How does it get any better than that?
that's what it's all about, right?
You know, I took my son with me to a meeting. I was in Orleans, Indiana. I don't know if you know where that
I
is.
do. I've been there.
Okay.
Been there.
Well, I was preaching there, and Owen decided to go with me. He was, I don't know, I think he was 10 years old, 10 or 11. And I gave my lesson. It's a lesson that I stole from Jeff Hamilton out in Nevada. And it's about the 3 chairs, about how Christians that, for example, the Christians that start a church are real
right.
energetic.
Yeah.
Then their children, well, they still come, but they don't quite have that energy. And by the time you get to their children, the 3rd generation, we don't even know what it's about. We just go because they did.
Right.
Well, I was talking about that, did the lesson. I got done, and I was singing the invitation song, we call it, something to stir you, to invite you to come and be obedient. It was a song I wasn't real familiar with, so I was kind of spending my time looking at the book because I didn't really know the words real well. Well, I'm looking down at my book, and the next thing I feel somebody going like this, and I look up, and Owen has come up, and he's saying, Dad, I want to be baptized. And I said, oh, man, this is wonderful.
Oh, man. Thank you. It can't get any better. I can feel what you were feeling right there, and But, for our viewers here, I'll just share one, which was the last one. This is probably about 4 weeks ago. But I've been studying with this guy who was a Jehovah Witness. But when we're off air, I'll tell you some of the reasons why he got out of that. It's just some terrible stuff. But anyways, but he took our correspondence course. But when I get there, he's got all these correspondence courses from all these different religious groups. And it's confusing him. And you talked about premillennialism and everything. I mean, every class he wanted to study Revelation. Let's study Revelation. I'm just like, whoa, this is... And so we've been studying for quite a while. And so this one class he starts in, and I told Debbie this, my wife. I said, I'm sitting there waiting for a chance to cut in to say, we're done. This guy is so far... There's just no, we're not going to get anywhere. He's just got all this junk. And, you talk about try to unteach people before you can teach them. Well, but he's still getting this junk. And so when he finally stopped, I was kind of really blunt. I said, we're just not getting anywhere, Philip. And he goes, you know what I need to do? He said, I need to throw all this stuff away. I go, yeah. And he says, and I need to get baptized.
Wow.
We went from this class is over in my head to let's get in the car. You just never know, right? Yeah. You just don't know. And so that was pretty exciting because he's been on fire ever since.
Oh, man.
He's just a really great guy.
That is wonderful.
But we could talk all day about that.
Hey, have you got any things coming up that you can share with us? You probably got some more meetings. You have any more before the end of the year here?
This is the last one this year.
Okay.
The elders kind of just say, we kind of like to keep you around home from time to time.
Yeah, sure.
And so now we're fine until the spring. What had happened, it was a busy fall because one of the ones that was in the springtime, they just kept putting it off, and then we just did it. So this has been a really busy fall for us, but I'm excited to get back because there's just, like with Andrew there and some of the things that we want to do, pretty exciting stuff. But it's a blessing to get to be with the brethren here at Jonesboro. I am so thankful because I get to meet brethren that I've known before and new folks, and to see the enthusiasm. I didn't mention this yet to y'all, but Debbie knows what I mean when I say, honey, she'll say, well, how is this group to preach to? Because you know, don't you? You feed off the audience.
Yes.
You can tell when they're paying attention, when they're eager to learn.
Yes.
And that just pumps you up. So like that young lad who said, man, I love your energy. Well, I'm feeding off the brethren here.
Yeah.
What a great bunch, man.
How do you like having 4 or 5 kids sitting in the front row?
Oh, that is so awesome.
Isn't that cool?
Man, I look over there. They're singing away.
Yes.
Man, I just love hearing that. Man.
And they did that on their own. Nobody said, now you go up there and sit down and you sing loud.
Really?
They did that on their own. So.
Well, and they remember. They come up and they tell me some things that they remember from the sermon, which I always tell them I'm going to quiz you on.
Yeah, that's great. I noticed one of the ladies during the week, she has typed up some papers with the titles of your sermons for each night, and then it says notes, and she's giving it to the kids. So I thought that was really neat.
That is really awesome. You guys need to be commended for the good work you guys are doing, because people often say, was it a successful meeting? Was the gospel preached? So that's all I want to do, yes. Right? The elders just say, Chuck, would you come here and just preach the gospel? You and I, we're not special, right? We're just not. We just want to preach Jesus Christ and Him crucified and help people get to heaven. And if we say something that people have questions about, let's talk.
Absolutely.
So we'll do.
Chuck, thanks for being with us this way. You have been such an encouragement to us.
Well, you are a shot in the arm, buddy. I'm going to talk about you behind your back.
Well, I'm used to that.
Good stuff.
If you have more questions for Chuck, you'd like to know more, feel free to leave your comment if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. I always tell people, if you want to talk a little more at length or you want to talk a little more privately, then feel free to use my email, jdmundy3355@gmail.com. Not everybody wants their comment just out there for everyone to read.
Right.
And also open your smartphone and turn your camera on and just aim it at that QR code, and it will bring up the link to our website, which is stoneridgechurchofchrist.com. And we've got, tons of articles on there, recorded Bible classes, recorded sermons, gospel meetings. All of Chuck's stuff will be available right from our website. And we want you to go to that and take advantage of all those things.
So, John, you can also let the folks know that I'm a texter.
Okay.
And if they text you or call you and say, do you have Chuck's phone number? By all means, just text folks, say who you are, so I don't know who it's from, because you always get a phone number.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't know who it's from. And you've got questions, hey, we're here to answer and help any way that we can. And so just wanted to throw that out there.
Absolutely. So we'll give you the number and you can text. I have mine linked to an account called Spam Risk. So if I come through, you'll know who it is.
Oh, there you go. We have one that we use Google Voice.
Uh-huh.
For the TV program.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
and be sure and check out is that for locally there, St. Louis area?
It is, but we upload them on our website and a YouTube channel.
Okay.
All the past TV programs.
How do I get to that?
Probably just you would go into YouTube and just type in "Study the Word." That's what it's called.
Study the
Word.
Okay.
Kirkwood.
Study the Word, Kirkwood. Be sure and check that out.
Yeah.
And here's let's see. Tonight will be Thursday. Is your baptism
Tomorrow
hindering?
night. That's tomorrow night.
Yes, that's when this will air. I know it's hard to wrap your head around it, but anyway,
that's right.
So that is an awesome title. Is your baptism hindering you from being baptized? I'm really looking forward to that. I know there's going to be some things that will generate some discussion there.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. So we'll be meeting tonight at 7 p.m. and then tomorrow at 7 p.m. Victory. That's one of those things that Chuck said he loves to talk about. So make sure you're here. And speaking of that, we want to invite you to our regular assemblies here at the Stone Ridge Church of Christ. We meet on Sundays at 10 a.m. for Bible class, and we have classes for every age. Doesn't matter if they're babies, we have little chairs you put them in, and we teach them the most primary things we can, all the way up through people as old as me. So we've got classes for everybody. And so we'll meet at 10 a.m. We'll worship at 11 a.m. and again at 6 p.m. And Wednesdays we'll meet at 7 p.m. for Bible study. And again, we'll have all those age-appropriate classes. We're at 514 Airport Road in Jonesboro, and we want you to come and be with us.
So Does this come on every morning?
Every morning at 8, but you can go back and look at archives. So, cool. But I have a lot of people that come on at 8. They like it at 8. Okay. And that's really our goal. We want you to start the day thinking about the Word of God.
Cool.
So until next time, thank you for being with us. Thanks to Chuck for giving us all this information and letting us get to know him a little bit. And as you're going through your activities today, remember, we're not trying to preach to you. We're preaching with you. We love you. The Lord loves you. And we want to go to heaven, as Chuck said. We want everyone else to be there with us. Have a great day, everybody.
King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all for our sake became poor. So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me.